Hello and welcome to another episode of the Phoenix Wisdom Podcast. I am your host, Janet Sandberg, and I am here today with Erin Dominick. Erin, welcome.
Thank you, Janet. I am so glad to be here.
I am so glad you're here too. Why don't you just start off by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Let's see. I am almost 50. I have two grown boys, and they have four kids between the two families. I am an avid hiker. I love living in the mountains of Colorado. I have the most fabulous little dog. His name is Ranger. And my husband is retired, and he is fabulous as well. So now I have created a pretty good life.
Sounds like it. Sounds like it. Sounds pretty awesome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. But I know if you're on the podcast, it wasn't always that way.
No,
No.
no.
So let's go back in time a little bit and tell us about the times when things were very much not okay.
Yeah, it went from kind of being okay to a slow descent into really not okay. I was 15, and 15 is just a hard age for girls anyway.
Yeah. Oh my
It's
God.
tough. But my family was disintegrating from every angle. My friends were not really my friends. It seemed like everything I was doing in my life was wrong. And I went from things externally being wrong to making poor choices, and then it went internal. And when it went internally wrong, that's when it went from slowly going downhill to 0 to 60 in 2.2. I was on a path of self-destruction, and I couldn't even cry anymore. It hurt so bad, I couldn't even cry anymore. I don't really remember a whole lot about that time except the thoughts I had. I
Mhm.
think my brain was so full with hating myself and hating my life and hating and hating. On the outside, you would never have known that. I was still
Right.
smiling, still upbeat, telling everybody how much I loved them and how fabulous they were, and the whole time, just I could not get over my own hate. And one night, I went to a party, and it was 6 days before I turned 16, and I had too much to drink. I shouldn't have been drinking at all, but I had
Sure.
too much to drink, right? And I went to my parents' house absolutely wasted. I don't even know how I made it home. I was barefoot. I
Gosh.
walked through a pasture. I mean, I was had way too much to drink, but I was hell bent to commit suicide. I was just done. So I got into my parents' house and I overdosed. And I honestly think being that wasted saved my life, because I was so loud in
Oh God.
in my attempt that things were getting knocked over. I was getting knocked over. I made a lot of noise, and after several handfuls of pills, my mom woke up and came in, and she saw what was happening and called 911.
Right.
They took me to the hospital, pumped my stomach, which would never recommend. That was boy, you want to talk about bad choices. It was
I've
not
heard
good.
it's pretty terrible.
Yeah, yeah, it was not fun. And then the next day in the hospital, I was visited by, I couldn't even tell you how many mental health therapists. And they decided to make it a state mandated therapy session that I had to make it to with my family, because they realized that it wasn't just a 15-year-old girl's problem.
Sure.
I
It
didn't
really
know what I
isn't at that age.
Yeah, right? Like, oh my gosh. So I didn't really get what I needed from that therapy. unfortunately, I started to climb, climbing, "Oh, hey, I'm putting my life together. I'm making better choices and, life is getting better." And then I turned 19 and I had a 1-year-old and I found myself right back down at the bottom again. And I was looking up out of this hole and I remember I couldn't breathe. Like I couldn't it was just a constant weight and I couldn't breathe. And I was back to thinking every moment of every day how stupid I was and all that really
Mm.
negative internal communication. But now I had a 1-year-old.
Right.
Like, oh my gosh, what do I do now? I can't just abandon this kid. And so it was a huge internal struggle between like one side of my brain screaming at me that life is too hard and the other side of me screaming, no, 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 no,
Y
don't.
don't, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
You have
And
this tiny little reason to live right here.
yes. And sorry.
No, that's okay.
So Thanksgiving rolled around and my older brother, who I hadn't seen in years, was supposed to come see me. And he called. And that jerk, he was just kidding around, but he said, "Hey, I'm not going to be there." And I got real quiet and I thought, I'm done.
Mhm.
Even with this sweet little 1-year-old, I can't do this.
Yeah.
And then he got real quiet and he was like, "Erin, I'm just kidding. I'm on the way." And it was that moment that I realized, my God, I could have thrown everything away over one little thing in my life.
Mhm.
And so I started really trying. And I took a look at my life and I thought, okay, I hate my life. I don't like the choices I'm making. I feel stupid. Where do I start? And I started with just one little thing every day. And I was like, okay, I don't like the fact that I smoke. Done. I quit smoking. That was really, really hard. But
Yeah.
then it was, okay, I did one good thing. Now, what else don't I like about my life? And I took it. There's an old adage, how do you eat an elephant?
One bite at a time.
One bite at a time. So I just started taking the smallest bites that I could possibly take of this enormous elephant. And it took a long time. I still made some poor choices.
Yeah.
Uh, but I went into healthcare because that was something I wanted to do. I really wanted to help people feel better.
Mhm.
That's been a 17-year journey. And on that journey, I discovered I wasn't alone. So many quote unquote normal people go through this and they do have ideation and they do have horrible, horrible thoughts. And the whole time they're smiling and
Yeah.
the whole time they're trying to help someone else out. Because my field is physical, I'm in occupational therapy. I decided I don't know how to go into that mental side of helping, but I started finding a lot of people get suicidal over pain and not being physically well. Over the
That makes a
last
lot of sense.
yeah, I was shocked. People that live in chronic pain,
Mhm.
they felt the same way I did. The exact same way. Horrible thoughts in their heads. This is never ending. I can't get out of this cycle. And they don't know who to turn to and they don't know where to go. Man, if that didn't resonate with me.
Mhm.
All all the time when people that are in chronic pain come to me and I hear them, it, it's I don't know. It doesn't matter if it's physical or mental, but when you get in that place, it's tough. It's really, really tough. So if I can help someone out of physical pain, and help
Yeah.
kind of start that journey getting out of that suicidal cycle, I will absolutely go to the ends of the earth. I have started a pain program that I have multiple avenues to help chronic pain. Sometimes chronic pain doesn't stem from an actual physical problem. People
Right.
go into the doctor, the doctor's like,
There's nothing wrong with you.
nothing wrong with you. And the whole time they're crying because they can't get out of bed. So we work on that physical because sometimes it's in there and it's a soft tissue problem or it's a,
Mhm.
yeah, like hereditary issue. But if it's not a physical, or if that's not helping, or they have been in such chronic pain that they are on so many drugs, I have this huge network of support to help that chronic pain person who's just absolutely suicidal. It is a terrible thing when I look back and I think to myself, I almost threw away all of the help that I've done.
Mhm.
2 kids, my 4 grandkids, my horses and my dog and my husband, and the beautiful days that I have hiking and the smells. I didn't know it was gonna be like this.
Yeah.
I didn't could be like this.
That's the thing, right? It's
Yeah.
the unknown. All we know, all that's real to us is the pain that we're in and the hopelessness, and we can't ever see because things have been so horrible for so long, we can't see that there's even a possibility that it could be different.
No. No. I can honestly tell you when people used to tell me, because once in a while I would let my little secret out and tell someone, "God, I'm in a really bad place and I really hurt." And they would tell me, "Oh, things will get better." And I used to think to myself, for you, they'll get better. There I honestly used to think there was no getting better for me. That was the life I was meant to live. And it used to really tick me off. I used to I remember getting so angry when somebody would tell me that they were having a great day and, "Oh, look at the sunshine," or, something super positive. Because 'cause I'm like, "Don't you realize, like, I don't care. I just don't care." But then, that happy part of me, "It is a beautiful day," and, you gotta play the part.
Yeah.
And then I would go home and I would, be seething because somebody else's life is great.
Mhm.
And it wasn't a jealousy thing. It was just
Yeah.
I
Just
just didn't know.
anger.
Yeah, yeah, it was just anger. Anger at the whole thing. So, yeah, it's those thoughts, man, they're strong, and it's a hard place to be.
It is. So what I'm curious about more of those like little bite-sized changes that you took. What were some of the other ones? You said you decided to quit smoking, which is not really a little step. It's only one thing, but it's like freaking huge. Oh.
And, honestly, Jenna, out of all the things that I could have chosen at the time, that was probably one of the hardest. I just didn't know that it was gonna be that hard. But I quit smoking. I started dressing differently. I started dressing, with more self-respect.
Okay.
I really had such a low self-esteem at that time that I didn't care. So some days I would wake up and I would dress so trashy, and then the next day I was dressed like a slob because I just baggy sweats and a t-shirt. And I would go to the store like that. Like,
Well, yeah.
I just didn't even have the self-esteem to throw on a pair of jeans. And so I thought, okay, I'm gonna get my jeans on every day.
Yeah.
I started really paying attention to my own safety. I used to drive with reckless abandon. I I I just didn't it I kind of was tempting fate. I kept thinking,
Right.
okay, all right, I'll just drive like a complete idiot, and if something happens, something happens. And then I started thinking, okay, but if something happens, I take someone with me. And that I didn't want that on my conscience. Okay. So I started driving with a whole lot more respect for the others around me. And I think that was a big changing point, because I had recognized not only did I have no self-respect, but in this weird way I wasn't respecting people around me. I just didn't
Interesting.
have
Yeah.
that respect to give. I don't know, it was kind of weird. So then I started realizing how my actions were affecting other people. So, yep, started driving better. It took me a couple more years, but I went to school. That took me 3 attempts, and that's okay. Every time I would fall down, I would get back up, try it again. It wasn't that I was stupid, I just didn't have a direction.
Yeah.
But in my
Yeah.
head, yeah, I just kept hearing that voice that, "You're too stupid to do anything, just,
Mm.
wait tables," or. So, going to school, the first time I failed, that that was a really, really tough semester, because I had just proven that voice to be right.
Yes.
I had just absolutely laid it out for everyone to see. Yep, you guys were all right. I was stupid. And then I thought, you know what? I wasn't stupid. I just wasn't prepared. I didn't know what to expect and how to study. So I took one class.
Yeah. There's a big difference
It-
between, being stupid and being unprepared. Like if you don't know what you don't know and you go into a situation, you're like, whoa,
yes,
you
yes,
can't be successful. I mean, sometimes by fluke you can, but generally speaking, it's
true.
going to
Yeah.
be really, really challenging.
And it was. And I remember thinking, just make it through one class. So I
Hmm.
went in and asked, because they do all that testing for you, what am I strong in? Is there anything? Just give me anything. And so they actually put me in a creative writing course. And as weird as it sounds, I am more proud of that creative writing class than I am about my actual degree.
Yeah. Well, that was the changing point, right? You proved to
It
yourself that you
Yes.
could do hard things, as Glennon Doyle says.
I love that. I love that. Say that one more time.
I said, you prove to yourself that you can do hard things.
And that's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
Yes. So yeah, that was kind of the big turning point of not hitting rock bottom again. I really anticipated failing out of school that first time. That, man, now I got 2 kids. It's not just 1, I got 2 kids.
Oh
And
my gosh.
yeah, and I
There's a
thought,
little
"Oh."
more pressure there.
Yeah, and I thought, "Holy cow, here I go. I'm gonna hit rock bottom, and I'm gonna have those thoughts." And I honestly think that's kind of what halted me. It was like, "Look, you've been down this road. You just screwed up. Mistakes." Um, and I think that fear, that really, honest to God, that deep fear is what stopped me from sliding down that hill again into that pit. Because if I had not realized where it was gonna go, it would have happened again.
Right. Yeah.
So, thank goodness, I've kinda learned some of those coping skills.
Yeah, and you can see when the spiral is about to start after a while, and you learn to see the signals and the signs, and you're like,
Yes,
"Oh, this is I gotta stop this where we're at. I'm not gonna let this go any further."
exactly. And I think once I recognized those signs and started learning those coping skills, that was another big turning point. I think once you're really, really suicidal and you really don't see an end, I almost wonder if there's not a chemical change or even a physical change in our brain that takes place that makes it easier to slide into that place, and you kinda have to learn, like,
Oh, I think for sure. Yeah.
yeah, it's, interesting, maybe I should do a study on that,
Yeah.
but, mm, yeah, so, often the people that I'm working with, kinda say that same thing where it's like, eh, you know, when because usually I ask, "What stopped you from seeking help?" Or, "Well, I've tried everything." And so one of the things I always try to get across is that you just keep trying. Even if you think you've tried everything, you just keep trying. Being on the verge of 50 and having two very, very close suicide attempts, it's not that I haven't had those thoughts ever again in my whole life. It's just that I've learned how to deal with them.
Mm.
And I think once someone gets, like in chronic pain, once we stop that pain, now it's time to do the real hard work and learn how to not slide down, learn those coping skills. Uh, yeah, yes, exactly, maintenance. Keeping your body strong and flexible so that you don't fall back into that pain. Finding out if there's, trauma in your life that is encouraging that pain. I went through a period in time where I was really having a lot of shoulder trouble, and this is how I found one of my resources, and she was like, "Let's talk about your trauma." What do you know? Because I had done therapy. I was like, "Man, this is crazy. I don't know what's going on." And, of course, the docs, "There's nothing wrong with you. You're
Yeah.
fine. There's nothing." And so that's how I found her. And, we kind of talked about some trauma. And the next thing I knew, I was moving my arm a little better and I could breathe a little easier. And I was like, what? So that was how I learned that trauma affects the body.
It certainly does.
And a lot of times I will pair a trauma specialist with myself being a pain management, muscle recovery specialist, because sometimes that trauma can actually cause physical changes in a body. So the fact that I had to do physical therapy on my shoulder and the trauma therapy is actually what made my shoulder better.
Right.
One or the other just wasn't going to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to hit things on all the levels, the physical, mental, emotional, spiritual.
Yes.
We're
Oh,
we're all of those things all the time.
all
So,
the, all the time. And I don't think, I think that we know more about the ocean and outer space than we do our actual brains and bodies. We are actually a really cool species, and just amazing the things that we can do.
mhm. Yeah, it really is. It is amazing. When you put your mind to it, that that crazy brain that we have, you can do whatever you want, and especially when we're younger, but we tend to just make the decisions and do the things that are right in front of us. We don't really think too much about options or how we feel about those things. We just say yes automatically or no automatically. And it's like, well, we have a choice about how we want to live this life.
Yes.
Yeah, we might be in chronic pain right now because of a bunch of choices that we made or traumas that happened or whatever. But if you're choosing now, once you know that that exists, choosing not to get help for the trauma, choosing not to get help for the pain, choosing not to seek professional help and do the work yourself, then
Yes.
you're choosing to stay miserable.
Yes. And I I honestly can say that first step in calling anybody
Hmm.
is the hardest. It is
Yeah.
absolutely the hardest because what if they tell me no? What if they tell me it's not going to work?
Yeah. And I know
Wow.
how terrible it sounds, and it sounds glib almost for me to be like, you can choose however you want to live. Because
No,
like I've I've been there where, I've been, in utter despair and being like, things are never going to change. Why am I even still doing this every day? There's absolutely no point, because that part of my brain that says, hello, you have a choice right now, wasn't active. It couldn't. So like I've been there. I understand that when
no,
you're there, it seems like those choices are impossible and that you don't have a choice, but you really do.
but
You
you
really do.
you did, and you nailed it, because we as humans have a choice every single day. When I was 19 and I had my second downfall, I had no job. I was in an abusive marriage. I had a 1-year-old. My family was not supportive. I was living in the middle of nowhere, so I couldn't even get a job if I wanted a job. Um, My my ex-husband brought me home a nice little STD that turned into cervical cancer.
Oh my
I mean,
God.
yeah, it was like, holy cow. I honestly kept thinking, I can't do anything about this. But I did have choices.
Hmm.
And even though I couldn't leave that situation, I still had choices. I was still able to quit smoking. I was still able to just start taking those baby steps. And yes, when my ex saw me making better choices, it did not go over well.
No.
But by then, I had finally enough successes to be able to figure out a way to get out of that situation. But it was those choices that I made consciously, just those itty bitty bites of that elephant.
Yeah.
And so, yes, you are spot on the money. We make choices every single day. And if you make the choice every single day to not keep trying to get out of pain, to keep letting those demons, I would call them, live inside your head, that's your choice. That's the choice you're making. So yes, it does not sound glib at all. That's the truth. That's the truth.
Yeah. I'm a Reiki master teacher, and one of my first clients, however many years ago, 15 years ago or so, was in chronic pain. And he only found me because he had decided that he was going to try everything that he heard of, came across. Like he'd done all the traditional things, he'd gone to the doctor, he'd had PT, done all the things. He didn't
Drugs.
want to be on medication. And so he was just making the rounds to various practitioners that people had told him, like, oh, go try acupuncture. Oh, go try, some of the more lesser known holistic things that were out there. And he's like, yeah, nope, didn't like acupuncture. It didn't work for him the way he wanted it to. He tried. So he ended up in my office that I shared, with another practitioner that did another healing modality, tried that for a few times. Nope. My office mate sent him down the hall to me. He's like, well, go try out her, like, what have you got to lose? And he's like, okay. Like, and he was just so open, and he was just like literally willing to try anything. And he came in to my table and, laid down. I did a session, and he was like, he was out. Like Reiki often puts people to sleep, and he was just so zoned out of it. He seemed drunk at the end. Like he was so relaxed, and he
Wow.
had no pain. And he was like, okay, I'm coming back. But it was an occupational injury, like a repetitive use strain.
Yeah.
So he would have this for the rest of his life as long as he kept doing his job. So he's like, I need something that, without being on medication for the rest of his life. He's like, I'd way rather come in here and like zone out for an hour and be
Yeah.
good for a week and then come back, and and gradually, and then eventually we could leave it. But yeah, it's just that choice.
Yes.
Again, with the choice to be open, the choice to, even though it seems like you've tried absolutely everything. just be like, what else is there?
Yes, yes, and research and, you
Or
know
like him, not research.
one of the sad things about the way that we are right now is that our insurance and doctors aren't
Mm,
able to give us what we need, and so, again, it's that making a choice. You have to take control
yeah.
of your own.
You have to be your own advocate.
Yes, you have to be your own advocate.
Gone are
Gosh,
the days of, doctors that gave you personal care and would,
yes.
you knew them your whole life, and they, were part of the family and all
Yeah,
that good stuff. Like that's not how it is. They barely have time to do anything for us other than, you know,
yes, prescribe something.
prescribe something. Yeah,
And
or pass us off to somebody else. Be like, I don't think I can help. Go see this guy."
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and again, I mean, I can't stress it enough, that choice. Are you going to, accept the doctor just saying, "Oh, there's nothing wrong with you," or, "You're fine," or, "Oh, it's just a little,
It's
herniated disc,
just in
just."
your head.
Yeah, it's just in your head. I have a 26-year-old that I am working with that has a small child, and he has been in and out of the doctors constantly for the last 2 years with extreme back pain to the point where this, no names mentioned, but this 26-year-old cries in pain in the morning and at night and ices and, you know, doesn't want to take drugs, but is taking drugs as
Mhm.
little as possible and has been told for 2 years, "There is nothing wrong with you." Started doing started
That's a
doing,
big eye roll for the people listening.
yeah, asterisks. So, he started doing my physical pain program, part of healing, flexibility, strengthening, and he finally, for the first time in 2 years, he said, "I'll never know. I'll never know what was wrong with me." They
Mhm.
couldn't take a picture of it, they couldn't get it with all their science, but the movement and the healing is helping, and that's all I care about. At
Yeah.
this point, I feel better, and he made that choice. He made that choice of he wanted to get better, and he didn't believe that there wasn't anything wrong with him. He knew there was something wrong with him,
Well, sure.
but he'll never know what it was,
Yeah.
and that's okay. Sometimes
Okay,
you
too.
just gotta get better.
And it doesn't matter. And yeah. And yeah, I know a lot of the reasons um for my struggles with mental health, with depression and anxiety and all the things. Um because of, stuff I've been through.
Yep.
But I also know that there were signs of this like early on as a teenager. Before, when life was great.
Yes.
And I was happy. But there was always just a little part of me that was like, is it really? Like, you know,
Yeah,
let's
yeah.
maybe let's not be happy. And
May
then when life and traumas started happening and things then of course it was like, this is what we've been waiting for. you know?
I knew it was coming.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
part of it, I think, there it doesn't really matter. But, there's reasons for everything. And we don't necessarily need to know the reasons in order to be able to deal with the current, this is how I feel and I want to feel better.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Often I think, as humans, we overthink everything.
Mhm.
And it's just making that choice.
Yeah.
It's just literally not stopping. Keep trying.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes we need that kick in the butt. Sometimes we need either from
Yes.
ourselves being like, you know, thinking about ending our own lives to end the pain, whatever pain or situation that we're in. Sometimes it manifests physically and we get the kick that way where we're in a lot of pain or something weird happens. One time when I was at my lowest, just my body went haywire. had it was so hard to describe. It was like having goosebumps all over my body, but they hurt.
Oh my god.
Every single nerve ending was just fried.
God.
'Cause yeah. And then
Yeah.
I couldn't breathe, and it felt like there was an elephant on my chest, and I'm like, "Am I having a heart attack right now?"
Yes, and it feels that way, doesn't it?
Yeah. And it was
Like,
just so I went to the ER, and they sent me to a cardiologist and everything. They're like, "No, it's just anxiety." I'm like,
yeah,
"Just
just.
great,
Yeah,
great. There's an elephant on my chest, and my nerves are on fire, but it's just anxiety." And so I'm like, perhaps I
yeah.
should
Oh,
deal with this."
oh, now that I know I can just turn off that switch, thanks.
And I mean, obviously it wasn't instantaneous, but that was the when I decided to make that choice, being like, I can't live like this any longer. I have to I have to choose to make myself a priority and my health a priority and my mental health a priority.
Was that
And
hard?
yeah,
Was was that a tough thing for you?
yeah, yeah, it was. Just a lot in part because I didn't really know what to do. I didn't know how to make it better, right?
Yeah.
So the
Yes.
first thing I did was call my doctor and I'm like, "I think I need some medication."
Yes.
And,
Good.
we went through the little standard depression and anxiety questionnaires, and it came back as like, you know, severe depression and moderate anxiety, and it was like and I was surprised. Really? Really? Okay. I've been, suicidal for a while. I have all these weird bodily reactions and panic attacks and everything. Really? Wow.
You don't
You're just
say.
you're so out of touch with everything.
Yes.
So then that was sort of the first thing that I did, and then it was yeah, and then it was baby steps, like you said, just one bite at a time.
And I those bites are so hard. Like, talking about it now, I do. I make it sound like I just, I quit smoking and then I just took these baby steps. But, like I said, even just changing the way I was dressing and driving, just the smallest changes
Yeah,
that that you can do. But boy, that it's tough. It's really, really tough.
it really is, but it's so worth it because then we end up where we are now with wonderful husbands and families and jobs and
Yeah.
sunshine.
And if I can just share, I have so many letters and emails and the kindest things that people have said to me, once they kind of get through therapies and they send me letters and they tell me thank you. And to know that once upon a time, I just would have thrown everything away in a heartbeat. And somehow I have managed to spend my life helping people. That's huge to me.
Mhm.
That's huge to me. There are people out there that are grateful I'm alive.
Yes, and there always are, whether they send us letters or not.
Yes, 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 very much. My kids are very glad they're here.
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here today, Erin, and sharing your story and your wisdom and your insights. I really appreciate you.
Janet, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity. I am so glad you are throwing the door open and shedding light on this. Uh, there's a lot of us, quote unquote, normal people out there that look like we have it all together that, maybe once upon a time we didn't.
Mhm.
So thank you so much for doing what you do.
Thank you for listening. Remember that you are loved, you are worthy, you are valuable, you are meant for more, and that it really does get better. If you are in crisis, there are numbers that you can call or text to get the help that you need. That information for Canada and the US is in the description below each episode. If you are in immediate crisis, please call 911. We love you, and I hope you'll listen again.